class of the SEC once again, as far as Vegas is concerned, is Alabama. And their line is set at 11.5 wins. Ashton, Alabama, they replaced Steve Sarkisian with Bill O'Brien. Do you like that? Do you like this team? Obviously lost a lot of talent. Still tons of talent there. What do you think about this Alabama team?
Well, I think I first just want to, just kind of preface the whole opinion with you mentioned Bill O'Brien. They replaced Sarkisian, who was terrific there. He had one of the best offenses that we've ever seen, perhaps last year at Alabama. But and then he brings in kind of almost an exiled coach a little bit in O'Brien. He's really kind of been dragged through the mud the last couple of years, really, with just some of his dealings, and even with the Texans, just some of the moves they made. But I think whenever Nick Saban hires a guy, whatever opinion you had on him, you just kind of have to admit that you were wrong. Like Saban's never wrong when he hires these kind of washed up coaches, and it kind of looks like he's doing it again. And he's almost never missed. I mean, these have worked out for him. You look at even how he pretty much rehabilitated Lane Kiffin. Sarkisian was another one who also had his own drinking issues, but is Hugh Freeze next? I mean, who else is he going to get? No, it's going to be a great hire. That offense will continue just to hum right along. It won't miss a beat, sadly. You mentioned the numbers at 11.5, and for those of you all that have followed us through each one of these conferences, there's a lot of teams that actually their number is 11.5. I've taken the under on almost all of these teams because I just don't like to pick anyone to go undefeated. Alabama is going to be the one exception. I do have them winning every regular season game, going 12-0 in the regular season. The toughest games that they have will be versus Florida and Texas A&M. Other than that, they're really not too difficult of just a regular schedule. Now it's going to get a little tougher for them. The SEC championship could be difficult. Regular season, no reason why they can't go 12-0.
Right. So let's talk about some of the names. Obviously, Mac Jones going to the NFL. Bryce Young, who was the number one quarterback in the class of 2019, I believe. 2020. 2020. I had to think that one through a little bit. Not important, but the important thing is that he's very talented, and he has to replace Mac Jones, who was absolutely prolific last year. Do you expect this? You kind of mentioned you don't think this is going to miss a beat here on offense. Bryce Young, obviously very talented. Do you believe that the reason the offense won't miss a beat is because he is that good, or is it more about the pieces around him?
I mean, I don't know. I'm not exactly sure. I think I'm still kind of figuring that out a little bit. So I assumed wrongly that when Tua left, the offense would tank. I was like, yes, Tua's gone. Georgia can finally win a national championship. And then you have Mac Jones who comes in and puts up better numbers than Tua did. And it's that might just be the system that they have there. I think is maybe was more my takeaway from it. They did lose a lot of pieces, so they lost 4 top 10 receivers in the last 2 years. I mean, they had stud. You look at the go back and watch the 2019 LSU Alabama game, and just do yourself a favor and spend all 3 hours and watch that whole game. It's unbelievable. Just the talent it's ridiculous how many NFL studs were on the field that day. But so, yeah, they lost the receivers. That's not going to matter. They're going to be just fine. This past couple of days, Saban called out Jaleel Billingsley. Some of y'all probably saw that. And kind of got after him a little bit, which Saban would only do if he really thinks he's really talented. He needs him, and that was nothing more than Saban just poking him and just forcefully prodding him along. So they're going to be fine. Now I do think that when they don't have the matchup nightmares that they had last year. It's going to be a little different. It'll look a little different, but the system in their play calling is going to be terrific.
Yeah, I agree. And you mentioned some of the talent. You mentioned the tight end, of course, and then also just look at the running back room. They lost Najee Harris, the first round pick, and they still have Brian Robinson Jr., Jace McClellan, Trey Sanders, Roydell Williams, Kamara Wheaton. Just talent, man, everywhere at the running back position. And then some of the names out wide. John Mechie, of course, who was a really good receiver for them last year. And then Slade Bolden also returns. Sounds like Jamison Williams from the transfer from Ohio State Like it sounds like he might be their best receiver. Just some of the reports you hear from fall camp, he's really impressing. And then this spring, the true freshman Ajay Hall really shown. And I hear this fall, JoJo Earl, another true freshman, has really been lighting it up. So just no shortage of talent there. The offensive line, Evan Neal, of course, is the big name, first round left tackle. Some the rest of the offensive line, like they did have to replace some starters there. So and that's not nothing, but again, it's Alabama. Like they just in this incoming freshman class, they got the top two tackles in the country, and I want to say like the number two guard and like the number one center. Like just this is what Alabama does, and I'm not going to be worried about Alabama losing guys to the NFL until it's proven that they actually take a step back when that happens. Is that a fair statement?
No, I mean, I think that's very fair. I think that's kind of most people's opinion of Alabama right now is that it's yeah just copy paste almost. And I know and Saban, what did he? I forget what he said, that we just poop out first round draft picks or something like that. I forget the way he phrased it, but it was something like, you guys think this is easy and it's not. Well, it actually, like, they make it look very easy. What they're doing is very difficult, but they make it look very easy. And to our point about the offensive weapons, you mentioned Bolden and Mechie, and they're not going to be quite the one-on-one threats, that just the one-on-one assassins, you could say, that Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle, for example, were last year. But they're still going to be there. I think it's going to be a little different. Like they're going to have to scheme a little bit more than what they did. Whereas last year was just, let's have Devontae Smith run a 9 route, and then on the other side, Jalen Waddle will also run a 9 route, and the safety won't make it to both sides, and we'll throw it to whichever one is the most open, which it sometimes was both of them. But and especially against Ohio State when he's going against a middle linebacker. But then yeah, that we'll just leave that one alone. Let a dead dog die, I guess. But no, it's gonna be okay. Trey Sanders, a 5-star from a couple of years ago, has kind of been forgotten about. You almost wonder if this could possibly be his year with Najee gone. They have lots of depth there. There's a lot of depth. He has competition. Is this his year to possibly kind of break onto the scene and maybe kind of realize some of that potential that he has?
Maybe. Obviously, very talented player. One of the names I've heard a lot is Jason McClellan. And I really don't think it's going to be like the last few years when it seemed like Najee Harris got the bulk of the carries, and then they kind of sprinkled in Brian Robinson as they needed. But it was mostly about Harris, and I don't think there's going to be that bell cow this year because, like I said, there's so much talent there. I do think there's room for them to spread it out a little bit more. So yeah, Trey Sanders, Jason McClellan. I mean, you kind of have to play Brian Robinson Jr. just because he's proven he can be reliable. But I mean, if you're an Alabama fan, you're probably more excited about some of the other names. Yeah, like I'm not worried at all about the offense. You've mentioned that. The defense. Oh, and I should say with the just talking about replacing players. You mentioned losing Waddle but Waddle missed most of last season, and they still put up like one of the best passing offenses we've ever seen. And that's what they do. So that to me is just proof of how they can just replace guys that it doesn't matter. Like nobody on this roster is going to be Devontae Smith. Devontae Smith was special. Like I'm not sure we'll see another season like he had for I don't know. That was incredible. Even in today's passing era, what he did last year in only like 12 games was insane. So no, you're not going to replace guys like that just 1-to-1. But there's so much talent there. I'm not worried about that. The defense, the beginning of last year, the defense was kind of the question mark for Alabama, and then it seemed like they finally kind of turned it on towards the end of the year, and they became obviously an incredible defense like they normally are. Are you concerned at all about their defense this year? Just looking at the roster, the defensive line doesn't quite have the names like that they've kind of been known for. I mean, there's very good players: Fadarian Mathis, DJ Dale, Tim Smith, LeBron Ray, among others. So there's like good players for sure. I don't know if there's any superstars on the defensive line. The linebackers are a different story. But anyway, I'll let you go ahead. What do you think about the defense? Like, is that a worry at all for you?
I mean, maybe a little bit, But in this day and age, against the offenses that you're going against, you can have, I think, a really good defense and give up points, if that makes sense. I think Pete Golding, the DC there, I think he does a good job. Certainly an upgrade over Tosh Lupoi, the previous DC that they had. But yeah, no, they're not going to be a lockdown defense, and it's not going to. Yeah, it's not what it used to be. It's not what it used to be, but that doesn't mean that they're not good. They gave up points last year. They gave up points the year before. And I mean, yeah, at certain instances, they've given up a lot of points in big games, even. And that's with NFL first round draft picks. I mean, all through it, they had Patrick Surtain. He has departed for the NFL top corner. Just to like, that's kind of what they're it's kind of their normal thing. They're going to have really good cornerbacks, really good safeties in there, just future NFL guys that are going to be there, and they're still going to give up points. So yes, it is a little bit of a concern, but I mean, I don't think it's going to cost them a game. Do you?
No, I don't think so. You mentioned you have the over. I also have the over. I just think this team's too good. And like the linebackers, the linebacking core here is insane. Will Anderson might be the best player on the entire team. Christian Harris, Shane Lee, Chris Allen, the true freshman Dallas Turner. He's been turning heads. And then you also bring in Henry To'o from Tennessee. Like, it's just insane. It's a two deep of like all SEC level talent. And yeah, and the secondary, Josh Jobe is back. You do lose Sertan, but then you bring in Kool-Aid McKinstry, probably the top true freshman corner in the country. He is still a true freshman. Obviously, we saw what Derek Stingley did as a true freshman a couple years ago. So, yeah, that's a lot to live up to. But if he has a season like he did 2 years ago, I mean, you're not going to miss a beat there. But obviously, that's a lot to ask for. There's a couple other names: Malachi Moore, Jordan Battle. Those guys are really good as well. So yeah, they're just going to be really good. Do you think Kool-Aid McKinstry can live up to the hype? Because obviously he's got a cool nickname and he's the number one corner in the country as a coming out of high school. Like, do you think this is a legit starter, or is that just a concern that and anything on Alabama's team that's a concern is going to be a relative concern. But is that a relative concern to you?
I'm not sure. I know he just signed a deal with Kool-Aid. It's talking back to the NIL conversations that we've had in pods previous. He signed an NIL deal with Kool-Aid, so nice for him. It's hard to be what Derek Stingley was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Almost no chance he is that, because that was a special year. We saw a true freshman come in, and he was legitimately the best corner in all of college football against kids that were 2, 3, 4 years older than him. And he was the best of them. And it was very obvious to people that watched. So the short answer is no, he's not going to be that. And they don't have, there seems to be a little bit of just a deterioration in some of, you mentioned Jordan Battle, who's back again. He was ejected, I believe, for targeting in the championship game. It looks different. It looks different than what it's looked. And against previous years playing Alabama, the secondary, just the feel of it is different. They still have, you mentioned the linebackers. They're going to have elite pass rushers. They've always been able to get after the quarterback. I'm not sure. It's different. And is it maybe to what we were talking about earlier, where it's just everything has changed so much that it means that they give up more points? Or have they kind of, do you think they've just made that decision just to kind of to be more up and down the field? We're going to have a more free flowing game, and we're going to try to either get an interception or a sack fumble and not going to let you just beat us with 1,000 little cuts down the field. Is that more their approach, you think?
Possibly. I feel like when they figured out that offense is now king, they decided to put more eggs in the offense basket. And obviously we've seen the results. Like, they've had a top 3 offense in the country now for several years. And I feel like they decided we're not going to settle on defense. But if we had a top 8 defense instead of the number 1 defense in the country, that's okay, because our offense is going to be so good. And I don't know that their defensive recruiting has really suffered much. And I also wouldn't say that they've necessarily stopped. I mean, obviously, they're still putting plenty of defensive players in the NFL. That's not a concern at all. But I do think it's just kind of the nature of the sport has maybe made their defense look slightly less impressive than it used to be when they were keeping opposing teams under 10 points regularly. Like that was a thing for a while. And you almost can't do that. I think the entire SEC as a whole has really embraced offense more than they used to. Used to be 3 yards in a cloud of dust every Saturday. So yeah, it's they maybe there's maybe just a little less focus on that side of the ball, but it's their team is more built on offense now, and I think anybody that's been watching college football has seen that change, and it's really a testament to what Saban has done.
Absolutely. No question about it. To see kind of he seemed so set in his ways for so many years. And I think Kirby Smart still is. At Georgia, I think Kirby has not evolved nearly as quick as Saban did. There's no question. No question about that from a Georgia fan's perspective. I think just that speaks to Saban, just his willingness to learn and to change and to just develop. Like I mean, Alabama they had 4 NFL first round draft picks at receiver. You told someone that 10 years ago, they would not have believed you. There is no chance they would have believed you. They had 4 of them, and they're just like winging the ball all over the field with, I mean, yeah, just kind of his name's Mac Jones. Like he looks like he's a waiter, like at an Olive Garden. That's who Mac Jones is. But he's out there like he's chucking dimes. And yeah, the whole transformation, I think just maybe it hit me again, kind of just, I've been rewatching some games from last year and the year before, and just hit me like, this is just nowhere near what I thought Nick Saban was. And we knew he was changing, but like, that's to his credit. Like that is incredible. And it's why he will go down as probably the greatest coach of all time, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely.